Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Immediate Action Podcast presented by CallTower. In this podcast, we talk about mitigating communication emergencies in organizations. I'm the host, Kade Herbert, and joining us today, we have Channel Director Laura Martin, who's kind of our subject matter expert when it comes to the E911 systems and some of the laws and regulations that have been coming out lately about how communication organizations like ourselves at CallTower want to facilitate E911 services for our clients. We're not really going to get into what we particularly offer at CallTower. We kind of want this to be more of a thought leadership piece about what is going on in the world of E911 services. So with that, we're going to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. We are not a legal entity. We are not lawyers of any kind. So if you need legal advice, please seek it elsewhere. Do know that you can find all the information that we're going to be talking about at fcc.gov. So we really encourage you to, after you listen to this podcast, to head down there and find all the information that you need, and you'll be able to make the best decision for yourself and for your organization. So with that, I'm going to say hi to Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Kade.
How's it going?
Excellent. Thank you.
Very, very good. So today we're talking about E911 services, and there's been a lot of change recently. Change for the better, I would say. That there's some very, very real, very life saving laws and regulations that have been coming down recently about E911. Why don't we get into a little bit about the Kerry Act, if you want?
Sure. Kerrys Law came out a few years back, and it specifically targeted the ability for people to dial 911 as soon as they pick up any phone. The issues that some had previously were scenarios where you had to dial 9, for example, to get an outside line. So that in those scenarios, they'd have to dial 9911. So the law states that that can no longer be required to dial for an outside line. They just need to immediately be able to dial 911.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's not only does that save time in a situation where time is like extremely crucial,
Right.
but someone like, I think the circumstances regarding the name of the law, there was a girl who was unable to call out of a hotel room because she didn't know that she needed to hit the 9 in order to get out. So
Exactly.
even someone as even a small child would be able to hit 911 anywhere they are, and then they'll get connected to emergency services. So that makes a lot of sense.
Correct. Mhm.
So from a business perspective, organizations would want to make sure that whatever E911 system they implement would be able to pass muster with Kerrys Law, right?
Correct. All the major communication platforms that I've come across allow for that configuration that bypasses whatever your standard was for getting an outside line. So it is able to be configured.
Excellent. Okay. All right. And then the other one, this is probably the more complex one, is the Rayban Act. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, Rayban Act continues to get modified. So it was originally put in to require that a quote dispatchable location is connected to every phone number that would call 911.
So essentially like
any
a
phone
street
number.
address, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. A recognizable street address as well. In some cases, if it's a very large building, there are some states, I believe Pennsylvania is one, where if you have greater than X number of square feet, they require you to put additional data in there besides just the address so that that location is easier to find in an emergency.
That
Again,
makes sense. Yeah, like from like a campus perspective, a huge college like would be impossible to navigate, or even some, like you think about like maybe like an Amazon fulfillment center or something like that.
Exactly.
That's a place where, the other side of the building is practically a mile away. So
Right.
you definitely have to make sure that the emergency services go to the right spot.
You got it. And in January, they have amended that a bit to address employees' mobility. So an example being the most common one where you do have a dispatchable location tied to an employee's office phone.
Mhm.
But then when they take their computer to work from home and that computer has a soft phone on it, if the employee were to dial 911 from that soft phone,
Mhm.
the E911 location would get the address that was originally recorded at the office.
Okay, so that's not very helpful if I take my laptop home and for some reason only can call through my laptop. That they show up at my office instead of at my home.
Exactly. And a lot of, I should say a lot, several companies tried to mitigate that by putting in company standards, rules
Mhm.
that not to use your soft phone for 911. But in January, Rayban Act said that they could no longer do that.
Gotcha.
And that law is where it gets very gray. It
Mhm.
states that you have to have the ability to change the address or the dispatchable location.
Right.
Any service that you use, you can call them, email them, whatever communication
Mhm.
they have, and change that address.
Right.
What it does not do, what it does not speak to, I should say, is that it has to be a dynamic location, meaning that it automatically recognizes the address versus somebody having to call in and change that.
Gotcha.
It's very vague, so it can be interpreted that way. But we see many clients in our larger organizations that do not interpret it that way. This again goes back to consult fcc.gov and your attorney.
Yes.
The dynamic solutions are terrific. Um, the major carriers like Cisco and Microsoft both offer those.
Mhm.
So we encourage teams to use them. However, in different environments, that just may not be applicable. It might not be easy to implement.
Right,
So they
right.
want to stay with the more static version.
Gotcha. Where you would have to manually input any sort of changes. That makes
Perfect.
sense.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that has been extremely enlightening. I imagine this is very much something that varies from, like you said, in Pennsylvania has different rules than say in California has rules, and so it would be very important to make sure you know the rules of your state, the rules of your country. For any of our international listeners, they might have very different laws regarding what services are required for your organization. So important to make all those reviews, get all the best information, and make the best and safest decision for your organization.
Agreed.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for joining us today, and we look forward to having you on again. This has been the Immediate Action Podcast. I'm Kade Herbert. Join us next time for more information on how to mitigate communication emergencies in organizations. Thank you very much.